Hello, Americans, people of the world, people of Italy. There are people with the name Demoro, the names Demoro, Scalora, and Colò, who have collusions with a whole bunch of other cultures and people involved with the World Trade Center attack, with a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family members, also being and having been collusion slash S at, next to, and conjunctive to all natures of campuses, including fire and medical campuses, increasingly people from Hartford Hospital that have intelligence families next to them too, and lawyers with them with mail crimes, wire crimes, fake transcripts in their databases, the whole family members of interbranch. And these are people further with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forest, including women judges, collusion slash S, where everyone where there's collusions with everything that comes before them, only capable of being, for what I recorded, people from the Britain Superior Court forced to collusions with since they were kids. Increasingly sequence shifts too, like a John Mayano. I never met him until he has roles with people. I have educators from involved with Washington D.C. that I never had a personal conversation with at all, that made confessions about it tied to that. They have people from Washington D.C. and from the World Trade Center involved all along routes 175 from the founding locations, and next to them and conjunctive to that and to that in Old Wethersfield and across the country too. They're proofs the same way. They have replaced James Madison, what our founders had to have communicated for themselves and for those founding locations. There are some Mendez police. I didn't speak with any police officer there. When I went to get a police report, Wethersfield Police, with the other police forms and departments, they recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirm they use crime methods. I didn't have these are their communications. They put multiple falsified police reports for the same arrests. And they put charges with no writing. They put nonsense writing on one of it and make confessions. And they pretend I spoke. They put me in fake conversations, and even being at the police station when I was a kid and as an adult. I went to the police station, but I didn't have one conversation with one officer there. And they forced my Saudi acts to collusion with them with that. And with people named Scalora next to the World Trade Center the night before it in Manhattan. And with names on both sides of that case. And the court itself had their identity used remotely, as was proven afterwards. From inside the court, insidiously, legal papers had been brought to the court on time and time-stamped at the court. They had insidiously been re-time-stamped to appear late to the panel of judges the morning of the World Trade Center attack. Those are also people who had time collusions with all the countries involved with that, including Saudi Arabia, through Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, with many people involved with the Joshua Striker, involved with people on both sides, like the streets parallel to my own and on my own, who are increasingly collusion slash S with abuses of themselves too, with people from other areas and other parts of town, and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists at the same time. I was next to the World Trade Center there too. So Central Connecticut State University has a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members, and people associated, their lawyer, people associated with next to and conjunctive to his offices, intercities. And and he's demonstrating this too. Now I only knew about the Hartford spot near and their roles with Mark Twain House and Harriet Beecher Stowe House right next to it, and names at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. They have collusion slash S intercities with intelligence families that have been playing together inside all sides of my house, with retired Wethersfield police chiefs, their intimate ties, and everyone tied to them who had conversations with them. With multiple police departments are involved with them at the same time with predicate acts methods. And there are proofs that one of them, a brother of a John DeMoro, is one of the ones involved with the John DeMoro and himself with predicate acts in my area, and their roles with home break-ins and investigators used remotely relative to that, where they hide things while they're pretending other, where they're using the right to lie because they were directed to, but they're lying about that too, as collusions with false transcripts into databases since before computers put the method that has by that. These are also people on Valley Crest Street, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed, involved with the educators of a Ray Reynolds, and people involved with the Ray Reynolds, involved with houses near me, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, also with whiting forensics and state police families, interstates, and FBI, and various natures of federal criminals, and some as co-defendants in a 2006 district court case with Robert Luskin. Even if that was made up, and they have next to Fox Connecticut News collusion/S with all sides of criminal and civil case and depositions and interbranch and foreign at the same time. There are people with the name DeMora. One of their John DeMora looks just like this Aaron Monte, even if he's not related to him. He brought in the name. He recorded the name. They're pretending others recorded. They know they brought in confessions tied to and demonstrations of their roles with federal evidences crimes, wire crimes, predicate acts, criminal foreign influences. They brought in the name of Napolitano, and people on all sides of the Wethersfield Community Center, at the Wethersfield Community Center, involved with the World Trade Center attack predicate acts, and names who made confessions about the World Trade Center. I never saw a Dan Keene on the campus in my life. They tried to make it look like other by doing little tricks, by putting me in to run against him for class president. I never signed up for it, and I never got to speak. These are people that have been putting fake things in databases and building upon it. Increasingly, people from private schools have collusions with people with intelligence families that used to live on my street and tied to them, who have timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and with them pretending that they want privacy because they brought this up. The others that are coaching them to pretend they want privacy, people. In other words, I'm the one. You guys brought it up, and you're leaving out the other names as ones involved with the Scalera family /S/IES. I don't know the Scalera family. I didn't go to campuses with them. I don't know if they went to Central Connecticut State University. A bunch of people with Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College and next to it have roles with some untimely deaths, with foreign and domestic military families and medical families, with some sexual and medical offenders of kids, first forced years apart, including next to religious spots. There's a Robert Rodriguez and his Daryl Chandler, who sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm they're being used to put fake ties, fake natures ties to me. I never saw Daryl Chandler on my street. I never saw a Robert Rodriguez on any campus. I don't know what campus he went to. I don't know if he was homeschooled, but he has all along Route 3 are people who were putting fake things in databases, also having fakes for them, and conjunctions into that, like the state judicial branch offices. Joe DeMoro also has recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusions with houses next to there, with like an O'Brien family, also has collusions with houses next to the state judicial branch offices, with people involved with body dumping spots, and a former Mayor Gold, where they have their religious spots and the interreligious. There's a algebra class teacher I had in high school named Miss Riley, who confessed things about my repeated sexual things, intimate things about my neighbor, who I never even met, never even saw around. And that's increasingly, when I was in high school years ago, that was increasingly getting brought up other ways, with other natures of organized crimes, and different body dumping spots and names next to it, uses from ones years apart, and different reported killers where there were time collusions with you slash us with that. And things, and as relativity to things confirmed on Facebook. Facebook has collusions with New Britain Superior Court and with Wethersfield campuses with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and hiding with the confessions tied to a Michael Emmett, who is further involved with this. Scams against the whole town. We got to sue them. Otherwise, the whole town gets sued. And you guys got to get first, do what's right, and stop hiding this from the parents. They're using every right to lie, but they don't have the right to lie. They're making up the motivations. These are also people next to Hartford, next to Trinity College in Central Connecticut State University, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have collusions with intelligence families from Wethersfield and with the campuses. Names, they have the roles with the security, the family of the security, the campus. Their differences, the names of the people of the sciences, including the law. They can't defend that and afford to have discerned how our founders and how nature itself shows us that the breaching method used and uses differences. And everyone collusion slash us to an extent, otherwise that body is sensed and is adapted to, including if that body is a majority of people, including if that body is any united country with syntax trying to adapt. And any grouping of countries even easier has them tortured, extorted, and fact-cheating nature, enslaved, therefore physical, fact-cheating nature, quality aspects of nature, no matter how wealthy they are. Since ancient times, we have been systems tactical terror from how nature projects as only increasing value here, or is it or a special difference for us from here? How nature projects individual species bodies of individual bodies with all group differences, with some that are generated between species bodies non-distinctly, like two eyes, two sexes. We have the group parts in the singular part of itself, because in the same way you have cell body, cell nuclear, cell nuclear, cell wall /S. Those three parts are your complete identity, but not in physics. Your complete identity is simultaneously greater than and more finite than, while with active relativity to the physics of the cells of your body, no. It's not that I self-promote, it's that I'm bored. Because you guys won't follow mandated law. Get me off the page conversations with Channel 3 News. Channel 3 News has a bunch of people involved with writing forensics since I was a kid, more and more. Collusions with state police and with multiple police departments, and with people with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, involved with borders countries and border states families, where they've been coming back to America. They have relationships where the breaching method used them, where it uses at the same time the interbranch, all sides of criminal and civil cases of crime scenes, names at or next to it, the news, the differences of guilt. It hides behind and through collusions with the whole self-value sequence shifts, self-value rules forcing, criminal insidiousness natures of qualities aspects, fact-cheating nature. The breaching method already showed people, like, for example, people who speak about how you have to sue for your rights. You know how many times the court said that? The breaching method showed them they need to say those things. Judge Napolitano said, we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. And nature demonstrates this. And we're supposed to get the Constitution on the bridge. We're also supposed to not blame it on the foreign, leaving out the hyper-foreign, that which had slavery entrenched sickly, distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies through all these different bodies, including countries, but also sickly non-distinctly. There was also a hyper-foreign involved with that foreign. And then there still is. And there are self-value collusions with it. Our founders, what they communicated is that a breaching method reassigned Black people's rights of eyes, communications by nature itself, as the value of the Constitution unabridged, which is only increasing value here. Or it is forced from here, not as death. But as force, space, nature, transfer, as force, a special difference transfer. The special difference of the oceans, of the quality of the flesh of their fish. It is shown now, mixed with mercury, arsenic, plastic, so other too. Even the entire ocean. The fresh water, how could the fresh water be good? They're forever, well, of course there are forever chemicals in there because they need to keep what else is about it. Like, in other words, we're really, the breaching method only allowed the ground to be tactically denatured. Only allowed people to need to cause positive body nature progressions, acts of nature. The only way allowed is if they're going to be collusion / this against themselves and everyone else to an extent. Otherwise, it'd be sensed, including if not sensing for the breaching method, anybody not. If they're a majority of people. That's what had been sustained before America's founders were born. To employ everyone's time in nature and needs incapable of defending themselves and their nations and defending in their individual self, the group differences of the human species body, or of defending humanity voicings, unless, as self-value collusions with humanity voicings as systems tactical area from the human species body of individual bodies. These are people involved with the campuses, with the interreligious experts, and the atheist themed, involved with the border states, involved with databases, with predicate acts there, with guilt there at the databases, collusions, or at other locations /s. Crime scenes or not. Every location /s, everywhere the human species body has one, is increasingly a crime scene, a hypercrime scene that was caused by what? There are proofs in nature showing us the most probable and demonstrable, the most practical way. The best thing we should do is to blame. In other words, most probably worse than a transnational crime group. A transnational crime group became worse than a transnational crime group to hide how it was going to get caught by forcing, tricking, hurting, and persuading the only people who could operate the names of countries A through Z to blame other things, others, ourselves, for what it then did hyper additionally to what it knew it was going to get caught for. And then it knew that nature would demonstrate that too. Because the ancients understood things about nature that we could instantly learn, but we have had them replaced. We have black people's whites of eyes revelations replaced. We have fish with two eyes at the same time. This is about correlation / hypercorrelation. Because we are distinct from other species bodies, but we are also non-distinct from them simultaneously. And we are simultaneous with them, but also for that which is neither us nor them, but it is showing us how we can discern to an extent how it is we are all things anyway. It is also, even if we make things up that are like art, it is the difference of the order of the finite or the smallest finite detail. It is the difference of, not, but anyway, that which is active and or grouped with anything, including art. It is the difference of that which is simultaneous and or progressive. Because it's increasingly an identity of hyper-simultaneous nature. You don't have to call it that. It's increasingly a distinct identity of simultaneous nature as a scientific value. The same reason that we need more than one word for a verb. The ancients had nature show them. As we can observe, nature show us. We need more than one word for the name, for the parts of nature. for nature, for nature's identity, because nature's nature is shown to us, not just nature, every complete identity, every complete individual species body, and all the individual bodies of that species body have a semi-nature relationship to nature's nature. We could ignore that as systems that were forced to entertain torture, extortion, slavery against themselves, everyone else to its extent. All humanity voicing is fake. Sense and sensibilities, at least it's calm. Psychopath calm. Psychopath aggression. Needs to counter that. We'll have experts on that. That's the worst. No, it knew we would do those things. That has all sides of issues. Has the only people allowed to speak about race to be heard. If they're going to speak about it tactfully from how our founders plural, and from how James Madison told us to, not communicate for us not to leave out the breaching method. How it only allowed people to hurt each other and sustain that. How it invested that to measure to it, used and uses functionally. How it had roles with that hurt. But when it was responded to, while it is responded to, other things, others ourselves, are blamed, right where and how it's to blame. And all the exceptions are used to hide that. And they say, well, that's crime. In other words, those countering bodies still have collusion with predicate acts with facts method /S. They were child abused. Increasingly, the Harris family involved with Kevin Harris. Never had a word of conversation with him. He has Quinnipiac University involved with foreign and domestic intelligence, involved with research to locate all the campuses, though, including fire campuses and medical campuses. Hartford Hospital has a bunch of people with the Connecticut's District Court, with Brian Silver, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family member and their lawyers, with all sides of criminal and civil cases, as people involved with the World Trade Center and the court next to it, and next to my house the night before the World Trade Center attack. And the news media has had collusion /S with this. The FBI is recorded themselves, and other agencies recorded themselves worse than criminally incompetent relative to Black people's rights of eyes. No forgiveness relative to this, but not the way they ask you. All the names of the people, the sciences are a certain type of victim /hyper victim. But if we try to appreciate that right, they jump into our conversations dishonestly. They're changing and faking what people say about predicate acts. For example, I'm not even a lawyer. We have recorded how lawyers were used remotely, criminally foreign influence too. Tactically delusions raw. And worse than that, this breaching method needs nature's demonstrations of it manifest at locations, areas, and states everywhere the human species body is. A hyper-criminal foreign influences needs it to stay blamed wrongly on other things, others, ourselves. So that becomes true more and more. And so could hide behind the difference of that too. Use /S, only capable of being. Because people want to make their fact sheet this breaching method already used all sides of criminal and civil cases, the news and the interbranch and their state offices and the overt criminal enterprise, private one terrorists, even when they're not in the same case. All these other countries tied to the same names with the same sequence shifts, the same self-valued, forced quality of fact sheet nature, aspects of fact sheet nature that people wouldn't be able to get away with that in real life, let alone online. So they have readings of statutes, precedents regarding the validity of what's online. They have natures of jobs like with online. I'm going to be internet security. This breaching method more so than anyone, everything it did, it does through our own at countries A through Z. So in the future, even though it was only permitted, it was so those collusions would be manifest all at the same time, exactly where and when and how it needs. Because it knew nature is going to increasingly demonstrate to humanity a human fact shooting nature breaching method is one of the things that are valuable. That all these different plural things are in demonstration of, where there are demonstrations that come with where and how the suburbs are actually manifest, the way they are actually valued. From America to Russia to Ukraine, they were designed before cars were invented. They were designed before America's founders were even born. Well, it had a method to already to measure and maintain everyone from abroad. The only reason it worked is because everyone was an extent of collusion so sick against everyone else and against themselves, factually, nature-wise, therefore physically, that no one could fathom any nature of unity to counter anything or any nature of independence to counter anything factually, nature-wise, therefore physically at countries A through Z. You ain't any groupings of them. See, we are syntax systems that have relativity. This breaching method measures and maintains. If you entertain theory of relativity, for calling it math, you're going to measure what nature shows us. All physics had to be generated from, all physics had to come from what became value before physics became increasing value, and that generated physics. And we are going back to that. One identity of forever nature. That identity of forever nature, that the identity of nature is that to the extent we can discern, it is making more of its identity of forever nature, nature's body, through temporary / lasting space nature. In English, it was revealed to be taught this way. Increasingly, at the campuses I went, there are people that have been putting fake things in databases, and there are time collusion /S with you /S of that can be discerned. It's not just against me. But the law dictates that people are only allowed to speak for themselves. And that's why the law attaches me and others to fake conversations and ties to others, since we're the youngest kids. Increasingly, I went to a kindergarten class on a street off of Valleycrest Street. It goes by the side of the school. It used to be there. It used to be a school. And there's a Harris family involved with that, who's also involved with the Leahy family and with this Brian Silver, with multiple prosecutors and judges and victims advocates involved with criminal enterprises, private ones, and multiple police departments with wire crime action methods, falsified transcripts, including at interbranch locations, and has collusions with people next to body dumping spots, people involved with untimely deaths and use /estimate years apart. Some of them were at the same time, though, too, at on and off Trinity College, even if it was made up. Any or all of them, especially if all of them were made up, too. These are people in intercities, had effective confessions, planting evidence on my street, fake ties, fake nature ties to me, because they've been trying to group people wrong. And it's recorded how this breaching method maintains the names of the people, the sciences, the way it knew they would be instead. Criminally foreign impulse, tactically delusions raw. A bunch of people from a line on the map from Hartford Hospital all the way to the houses, businesses next to it. People associated with the area through time. Also with a girl with Cuban syntax. Try to make it fake like I know her. In other words, try to make a fake exception. Oh, there's a picture of you. She brought up Cuba. I don't know her. I had no communication, no response to her. Hartford Hospital has roles with the World Trade Center attack and with all these different countries. Right through World Wars, that there were collusions that our countries had with psychiatry, which is also tactically delusions. I'm not even a doctor. But Hartford Hospital faked conversations with me, with the Leahy family, who has multiple courts personally and professionally involved with them, criminally foreign influence, and tactically delusions raw, and fake conversations about the World Trade Center attack. And these are a whole bunch of people tied to them who have roles of identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And since I was a little kid, people building upon with this Harris family that have been putting fake things in the databases, like with this Ray Reynolds too. That was the only time I ever saw him on a campus, was 1 year when I was in grammar school. They tried to make fake exceptions of me knowing him off campuses. He has roles interstates with the people, with the intelligence families near me, involved with the Wethersfield police and the courts that attached me to fake ties to themselves and others when I was a kid and now as an adult, at their locations and with the internet and with wire and mail crimes and with other countries of work criminal enterprises, private ones brought up at the same time. Murders were brought up. They had things confirmed to me on Facebook, and then they took my Facebook page because it recorded them intercities with time use/S of multiple police departments, with the collusions with the same house/S increasingly, and their educators. Everyone's speaking behind other people's backs about things that don't even happen on campuses, increasingly making them part of their motivations where they're putting fake things on campuses, fake ties, fake natures of ties to everyone relative to their needs to hide how the three branches of government, their family members, the foreign that they share, the campuses, how they really share it here and there. But a bunch of people like Mark Violet, Eric Jensen, a whole bunch of people tied to next to Hartford Hospital planted evidences on my area and on my street, and collusions with the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices and the campuses, databases, and the news, and relative crime scenes, and relative roles, because it's evidences that whole careers. How forgiveness is a part because there's a breaching method involved too. Where the breaching method is involved, there are all kinds of collusions. Like when people are defending their takes on racism, leaving out how the breaching method that employed that. Employed a whole bunch of styles, needs, and natures, pretending it's debatable. That it has collusion/S with their logic, their reason, and with their blame, leaving out itself. Leaving out nature's demonstration/S of itself, with all the collusions with itself too, and nature's demonstrations of that, and its use/S of everyone blaming other things, forcing other things, others themselves, to be blamed for things that it caused, but it's getting away with it because it caused the collusions at the same time. If we put a little bit more quality fact checking nature, force, counter force, because we're forced to ignore the quality of fact checking nature that unabridged Constitution stands for. Why and how we have rights that are too numerous to list stands for. Why and how we have hyper evidential that shows that names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the interbranch and foreign at the same time, they originally and still they're still needing to hide the same collusion/S with all location/S uses. Even if they don't want it, it's the difference if they want with their motivations. This breaching method knows that nature is going to show that everyone at countries A through Z, a human fact checking nature breaching method is one of the things involved with the motivations of the only voices we are allowed to be here, speaking for humanity, the human volume science, speaking for science. They say they pretend that science is using what the people were recorded to have said, dishonestly and tactically delusions raw, while being used remotely to pretend that's debatable. to pretend debatable that James Madison is the only founder, plural, we know the name of. That's being used to measure and to sense for the breaching method and to renounce for the breaching method. Anyone starting to adapt to how at campuses A through Z, a hyper criminally foreign influence, breaching method orchestrated the syntax of the names of the people of the sciences and of the counselors to them, and of exceptions and exception nature appreciation roles. The beginning of the Old Testament and the beginning of the Quran. They have parts that the people of Islam and the people of Catholicism or Christianity that can't afford to have discern. For example, the beginning of the Old Testament says only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together. And the part that comes before this, they can't be honest about that. The part that comes before it, the part that comes after it, like the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or the difference of it between that or the part that comes before it. What comes before the tree of life and the knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of, in other words, is the part that says only defend right here, where the names of the people of sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it. And note this, note, it's not because it's not, there are proofs that the Old Testament and the Quran were written with consciousness that there's a breaching method that would only allow self-value only and maintain only capable of being self-value its roles with the interpretations and with the appreciation of every word, everything, including the books. Because, for example, the beginning of the Old Testament says all that matters, as if someone's honest about what they're going to call the name of that identity generating all things. That it says love them even if they don't agree to call it Allah. Part of it, because nature shows us too. Men did with this. Nature itself shows us how it is functional, being itself. The invisible but still discernible, distinctly from itself being the hyper-invisible but still discernible. It is the invisible but still discernible as the parts of speech of English grammar, of other languages. It is the hyper-invisible but still discernible where and how we need to appreciate more than one word for a verb, for example. The body of, like a predicate, a main verb, participle nature, present participle, past participle, Jared, in other words, a verbal. When a predicate is a main verb, we need more than one verb because we're speaking because of the science of how nature, everything is about how nature is showing us it is functional being. It has three distinct identities of relationship to itself that are inseparable from any individual part of itself, that come with demonstration / that's how the rest of nature's complete identity stays inseparable from the individual parts of itself. It is manifest more finite than greater than with active relativity to all parts of everything, even anything made up. This way. Many pray. Vaccines, in other words. To have a great holiday, people. But in other words, Hamas, and when we have debates, and we'll look, the Palestinian people are starving. Exactly. Stay on that. Oh, but it goes to the terror and stuff like that. We could have put, we have to make, there's a difference between making criminal insidiousness natures of positives out of negatives. and making hyper positives out of negatives. But the only way to make hyper positive, and nature shows us to check too, to make sure we didn't make criminal ceases natures of positive out of negative. As long as we're checking, it increasingly shows us means to make more hyper positives out of negative. Evolution's fruits, gifts, means everywhere at once. We have to have a human species body plan. In America, there's a former Mayor Gold and his daughter have been stacking fake things in databases and acting tied to that. And they affected a whole bunch of confessions to me. But there are proofs that there are other people doing this too, to leave their names, other names measured and maintained, left out. For example, one's associated with whiting forensics since before I was born. Whiting forensics and when I was a little kid, distinctly from when I was an adult. They have people involved with various natures of federal evidences crimes and organized crimes with them. And with the houses further involved with proven child abusers, leaders of kids' first force roles. But these are roles with organized crime. These are people not legitimately pretending they're trying to establish or hide their undercover or whatever their identity. In other words, increasingly people, in other words, intercities next to the campuses and all along Route 175 sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm they were influenced to act and let other people plant fake things and the differences of guilt. They'll tell you this. They were just repeating it. In other words, these are people increasingly involved with proven child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forth, and more than now. Roles with the news that have been planting evidences along the routes, next to crime scenes, at corners of streets, in corners of buildings. This is also manifest with the differences of guilt of our own, the other country's own families or kids, and which age of the family is involved. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists at the same time, overt criminally foreign influence companies, international ones, countries, then further as groupings of them. The United Nations has roles with whiting forensics too, with a Bob Chase, increasingly involved with a Phil Cololo, as one of the ones involved on all sides of my house, with intelligence families recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, further involved with him, as one of the ones involved with child abusers and more sexual and medical offenders of kids, and people from other areas who've been planting evidence on my street. Fake ties to me since I was a kid. Different people, a whole bunch of different people. Trying to make it look like we're peers and things like that. And collusions as people stacking fake things in big databases. This breaching method already used remotely. The same self-value federal evidences crimes methods, collusions, and with it having been used, and with uses /s of it. This breaching method keeps the names of the people, the sciences, and the counters to them. Like people saying, America's founders owned slaves, and the people that are defending our founders in ways that are framing them for slavery. There are collusions, and with the exceptions, and shock and awe. Our founders, plural. And with James Madison, they communicated about how they wanted nothing to do with slavery. They wanted nothing to do with the breaching methods assault against all women. With overt criminal enterprise, private international companies, the laws, formally, the campuses, these are all, but there's that, Moses, this, that's all roles, but not free speech would have cleared that all up. And they still want to pretend they have free speech. But that's the science. That's what the record said. Well, look, that's what Abraham Lincoln said. James Madison's plan is still unfolding. We're still abridged. James Madison's plan and those plural founders enabled the Civil War. It forced the North and South were not with one body allowed to be able to speak about any subject unless as collusion slash S to an extent with the breaching methods roles with slavery, with torture, with extortion against every human difference, and had it northern, south, and south entrenched through different bodies, including different countries, not just England. And England had it entrenched there. We could discern that for how it's still, you guys have self-added collusions while being used remotely, framing America's founders and James Madison's for it. And for and framing our founders as being, we don't, George Washington directed us to understand too that he was extorted. You guys won't allow a sane and honest use of that for evidence. You guys pretend that's debatable. That's why we need to have logic experts, reason experts that aren't criminally foreign influenced. All kinds of natures of organized crimes, with many at and next to Hartford Hospital, and a line from there to UConn. I mean, to UConn has roles with a whole bunch of people. I don't know for them, and they're pretending other, which also shows it. But from there to UPS, UPS has roles of people years apart with confessions that as strangers sought me out about their roles with drugs, with UPS. One kid said he was arrested for it. Whether he made it up because he was intelligent. Big deal. He was in nowhere. I'm not pointing to that. These are the ones involved with the courts, the Brit Superior Court, Harper Courts, and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. And they have collusions with names at and next to the campuses in intercities, and next to Central Connecticut State University on Covington Street. They have a bunch of people involved with leasing agents. They're also involved with some girls that were abused at campuses I went to when I was a little kid by the adults involved further with the Wethersfield. There's an officer Poisian too, involved further with digital crimes, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and with the systems, with the computer systems, and how they were, we're going in for the arrest warrant, and how they write those arrest warrants and why. They're hiding their actual motivations. And with a principal upskirt nature, involved with digital crimes, with a Phil Collot too, and with this Bob Chase, and a whole bunch of names they brought up at once, and people that put me in fake conversations with themselves. And I can't get anyone on paper since before the World Trade Center attack. Every year since, too, they've been hiding this. As one's tied collusion / S with the same house / S in the locations involved with them. In other words, these are also some black KKK interbranch, interreligion. So there's a Debbie Gold and a Chet Casper, and a Casper family is also involved with people at Hartford Hospital, with a Smith family near me, with people there involved with wire crimes and mail crimes, and with the security at Hartford Hospital and the lawyers of them and their family members, the lawyers of judges putting fake things in databases there, and relative delusions. I'm not even a doctor. We can delineate the delusions from their criminally foreign influence, fact-keeping nature, aspects, and so the collusions. In other words, their obligations to get right now. And they have a bunch of murders and things brought up at the same time. Mark Violet is one of the ones involved all along Route 175, and with 3 spots at the end of the Borough Turnpike, and with a Joshua Schumacher, with the Facebook page of the Wethersfield Police, and with people all along, conjunctions to Route 175 and to that, like the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices, where they also have Facebook collusions with them with sexual and medical offenders of kids, inter-campuses, and those are people with private school campuses. Collusions with people from public schools that never even had classes with each other. People that never even saw each other around, like a Joshua Julian too. He was pretending other. I never saw a Mike Violet on a campus ever. I never saw a Mark Violet. Real quick, they were trying to make a big exception to pretend other. And they need to hide that because already the courts and 3 branches of government, in other words, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists, and a whole bunch of other countries and their family members, their neighbors, their lawyers used it remotely at the same time. Much more was capable of being discerned to have been recorded on Facebook. And then they were shown and are being shown they need to pretend other is science than is science, and fake motivations for it. A bunch of people with computers at Central Connecticut State University and with other departments there have roles with a Jamie Carone, a Kevin Carone, and a Mark Carone, with a whole bunch of people tied to them. I never saw them on the inside of campus in my life. Kevin Carone and a Mark Carone, two twin brothers. They have collusions with Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut, and educators tied to them, involved with identity people and people that say they were intimatized with them, and people who put seating their time with, or they're going to put someone who went for your kill who just happens to be in your class. They have collusions with those people all along the Saulstein Highway, and people involved on my street. I never saw them on my street in my life. But so there's a Perone family and a Kerr family who have corners of streets. I never saw a Perone family on a campus in my life either. These are increasingly people with Hartford Hospital and with intelligence next to them, like a Mark Violet, Eric Jensen, people named DeMoro, Jonathan Maiano, have roles with the businesses and houses next to Hartford Hospital, Eric Oliveri. Collusions, planting predicate acts on my street, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And with the news at the same time, won't get on paper. Get me out the fake conversations with Channel 3 News. It has something to do with the ones named tomorrow tied to this Aaron Mate. Even if he's not related to him, doesn't know him because of how they brought in the name Aaron. There's someone with the name Aaron from Wethersfield. It was one of the ones involved with the intelligence family, with putting identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations for it too. Collusions with the FBI director and various natures of courts, and people with the shopping centers and malls, and names next to a serial killer body dumping spot, reported the serial killer body dumping spot. Even if they made that or any of it up, that serial killer, even if it was an undercover cop, and it's not really a serial killer, he has collusions with his prison, with the names next to that reported serial killing body dumping spot before the World Trade Center attack, during it, and since. As one's involved with all the other countries involved, including Saudi Arabia. These are also the lawyers of the victims of the World Trade Center attack who are recorded. Worse than criminally incompetent, collusion /S. We're supposed to attend to why and to how. There's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. A whole bunch of people with that also recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed, people with the name Tomorrow. And all along Church Street in Old Wethersfield, people sought me and others tied to me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have collusions with people involved with car break-ins and home break-ins and wire crimes and predicate acts with New Britain Superior Court on my street and through Wethersfield through time. And blaming other things where they have roles with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists at the same time. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB about the World Trade Center attack, with themselves and with others, and with their interbranch sources, and with their own personal sources. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Why are they leaking? Why are they making me draw a map to them? Why is this police chief Cintron having people demonstrate things about this Mazzucato family with the corners of Elm Street and Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, collusions with them and conjunctions to it and to that, like the state judicial branch offices? Mazzucato Bakery has people also involved with a Maiano family who has recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusions with people that have modern pastry, with a John Maiano involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts against me to them. I don't know what it's about with the people on my street, further with the child abusers, leaders of kids, though, and tied to this Phil Cologne. And the ones I don't know their names of, but they know my name, tied to a Smith family and a guy who brought up the Casper family's name. And their roles with the Wethersfield town offices and intra campuses. Wethersfield town offices with Afghan leaders of kids, nothing personal against them. They brought up confessions over the phone too about their roles with Los Solitos team next to Trinity College. Bunch of people next to Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and next to Central Connecticut State University. They have collusions of people with multiple police departments at the same time, intercity collusion /S, refusing to get on paper. They use crime methods where and how their difference is used remotely. They use crime methods where they pretend people were making conspiracy theories. Not just in America. That's how they get all over. They self-value. The names of the people, the sciences, have been worse than forsaken the obligations that their words had that were shown to them. In other words, our founders, this would have surfaced about how our founders had a plan and was with James Madison to counter-extort key people at key locations. And how and why we're supposed to not leave them we're not supposed to entertain them, pretended their names known. Because doing that is also sensing self-value collusions having replaced about that plan. And by how and why really everyone had to leave slavery entrenched. You don't vote on slavery. Our founders demonstrated that to us, to understand that. How and why the breaching method force to counter all those things, you had to bring it up in the subject. That's forced isolated. Can't speak about the Constitution unabridged. Can't speak about those abridgments. We're gonna get free speech for real. We're gonna get the fake free speech down. They're pretending free press, freedom of press. The news said they recorded themselves self-valuing uses of the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. Collusion /that's they want to need to have a debate. Like if you know that the police are at least plausibly collusions with something, and someone says that, and you pretend that they're making allegations and changing, faking, hiding what they said about the actual predicate acts. In other words, they're also getting away because the news has been used to plant fake things and wire crime acts and methods with their phones too. They just put fake transcripts, digital crime acts and methods. Connecticut networks and their sources, including interbranch, and then further hyper additionally, the state offices, corrections, and judicial branch offices, but also has all sides of criminal and civil cases and crime scenes at the same time, used to measure and maintain self-value collusion /S, leaving out the other names and other things involved with all natures of crime scenes. They're a whole breaching method. Predicate acts with facts method /S leveraged upon the people of all locations /S, let alone New York City, the people in the background behind rap videos. You think Science Honest spoke for them? Black people, peer.